Shabbat Shalom. This is the brother Ra'aya coming at you with another Shabbat lesson. But before I get started, as always, I'm going to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rekah HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well, and whom I learned this truth from. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. Shabbat Shalom. And with this Shabbat lesson, I'm pretty much just going to go into current events and prophecy, because we truly are living in the times of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, turning things up, as Apostle Tahar has deemed the year 2022 to be. And in this Shabbat video, I'll be profiling two videos, one from the Prepared Homesteads YouTube channel and another from Full Spectrum Survival's YouTube channel. Hey, just to show the fact that prophecy is taking place right before our very eyes. We truly are living in some beautiful times, Akim. As it says in Romans chapter 13, our salvation is nearer than when we believe. So now more than ever, we should have all 10 toes down in this truth, pushing this word as hard as we possibly can to make our calling and election sure, and have that protective hedge around us during Jacob's trouble to be saved by these calamities, which are quickly coming our way. But as you can see, the first clip I'll be profiling is on the Prepared Homesteads YouTube channel, and the title reads, War and Collapse Are Near. The Pressure is On. And I'm going to start the video at the 7-minute and 49-second mark. And what made me use this video is just some of the points that the Prepared Homesteader, I guess, made in this video. While I don't agree with this, completely agree with how he speculates the scenarios will play out, he just said a few things here and there which lined up with the scriptures, which lined up with prophecy. And hey, you never know. The things he said, hey, the Most High might have them play out in some instances to line up with what he said. But regardless, like I said, he just said a few key things in this video that just really caught my attention in the spirit that can be lined up with prophecy. But before I start this clip, this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes.
Because this is just kind of how I think. I like to try to think ahead and kind of come up with all the probabilities of what could happen and the reactions of those probabilities. And I've been wondering what the American people, how they're going to react if some of these things happen. And let's just take, for instance, nuclear war. And I'm not just talking about our homeland getting attacked, which, I mean, it seems to be a possibility, probably a less likely possibility, but it's always there on the table, especially now more than ever.
Hey, what he just said with America getting attacked by nukes is on the table, and it's always been on the table, and it's an inevitability. Nuclear conflict will take place during World War III, which is all a part of biblical prophecy, and the United States of America is the only nation on the earth that's going to be completely wiped off the map. This is 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 10. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise. And in the scriptures, heaven and hell can be symbolic for a condition you're living in. If you're in your heavens, you're in rulership. And if you're in hell, vice versa, in captivity. On the bottom, being second-class citizens. And these Edomites, or so-called white people, and these other heathen nations, to an extent, are living in their heavens right now, while the children of Israel, who are known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, are living in their hell. But once these nuclear missiles start flying, there's going to be a role reversal. The kingdom of heaven is going to be established after the dust settles, and the children of Israel are going to be in their heavens, ruling in the kingdom of heaven, while these heathen nations, beginning with the Edomites, are going to be in their hell. The first 1,000 years of the kingdom of heaven, building it up in hardcore bondage and slavery. And then after that first 1,000 years, The other heathens will be allowed to go back to their lands, though they'll still be under the subjection of the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai and the children of Israel for eternity. But as for every single Edomite man, woman, and child, young and old, they're going to be gathered up and permanently culled from this planet by fire, the end of the nation of the Edomites. And I find it poetic that these nuclear missiles flying is going to start the end of Esau's rulership, and then fire is what's going to completely end the existence of the Edomites. But as it says, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. And what's going to melt the elements with fervent heat and burn up the works in the earth are these nuclear missiles. And like I said, the United States of America is going to be the only nation that's going to be completely wiped off the face of the earth by nuclear missiles. And nations like Russia are going to be the ones to lead the charge in shooting nukes on the U.S. during World War III. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, which this chapter deals with the destruction of the daughter of Babylon, Babylon the Great, the United States of America. Behold, a people shall come from the north. And what's north of the United States? Canada, that Arctic Ocean region, and then Russia, the North Country, as it's referred to up in verse 9 of Jeremiah chapter 50. And it's a well-known fact that Russia shooting missiles from itself across the north, across the Arctic Ocean region, as well as shooting missiles from its military assets in the Arctic Ocean region, which I've documented with plenty of videos over these last years, how Russia is building up its military presence back in that Arctic Ocean region, nuclear capable included, would be the shortest trajectory time for those missiles to reach the U.S. And a great nation, and many kings shall be raised up from the coasts of the earth, from the ends of the earth, from the four corners of the earth, not just nations that are allies with Russia, like China, Iran, or North Korea, but also the allies of the United States of America, Britain, France, Germany, these other NATO nations, which are going to turn against the U.S. at some point during World War III to ally themselves with this North country, Russia, are going to all together shoot 200 million nuclear missiles onto the United States, the daughter of Babylon. They shall hold the bow and the lance. And this is symbolic for those nuclear missiles, because what do bows shoot? Arrows. So the launch platforms and silos that these missiles are going to be fired from, and a lance is like a long spear. And what does a missile look like? An arrow or a spear? Because when the prophets had these visions thousands of years ago, they didn't know what a modern day nuclear missile was, so they described it the best way they could with what they knew during their times, ancient weapons of war like bows and arrows, lances, spears, flying swords. They are cruel and will not shew mercy. Their voice shall roar like the sea, and they shall ride upon horses. Everyone put in array like a man to the battle against thee, O daughter of Babylon. This isn't talking about the Neo-Babylonian Empire, which was in modern day Iraq. This is talking about that daughter, the United States of America. And when you go to Psalms 137, you can see that the nation of the Edomites are synonymous with the daughter of Babylon. But like I said, these nations are all together going to shoot 200 million nuclear missiles onto the United States of America, and it's going to turn it into a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland from sea to shining sea, the biblical lake of fire. Jump up to verse 40. As the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah and the neighbor cities thereof, saith Yahweh, and besides being known as Babylon the Great, the daughter of Babylon in the scriptures, the United States of America is also known as spiritual Sodom and Egypt, as pursuant to Revelation 11 verse 8, and it's clear to see why the U.S. is known as spiritual Sodom. This is the #1 nation that pushes the alphabet lifestyle, beginning with LG, onto the rest of the planet. They just came out with a movie called Bros, which go and look that abomination up. And then what did you have in June? Pride Month. And just like how the Most High overthrew ancient Sodom and Gomorrah with fire and brimstone from the sky. He's going to overthrow this modern day Sodom and Gomorrah with modern fire and brimstone, those nuclear missiles. So shall no man abide there, neither shall any son of man dwell therein. When this place is burnt up and turned into that desolate wasteland, man, woman, or child will never set foot on it ever again. And this is just another example to show you that this isn't talking about the ancient Neo-Babylonian Empire, which again was in modern-day Iraq. You've still got people inhabiting that land to this very day. And then after a time, only desert creatures are going to dwell in the former United States of America. Therefore, the wild beasts of the desert with the wild beasts of the islands shall dwell there, and the owls shall dwell therein, and it shall be no more inhabited forever, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. It's going to stand as an eternal memorial as to what a wicked kingdom looked like, how not to govern the earth, and what the judgment and punishment was for afflicting the apple of the Most High's eye, the children of Israel, again, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today.
So let's just talk about if one is used in Ukraine. It's quite possible that the American people could just panic. You know, the first nuke used since World War II, and the first one used in that way. You know, it would throw the whole world into a panic. Possibly. Because I was thinking, I thought, you know, over the last couple of years, there's been so many things happen that's caused everyone to be in a panic, everyone to be on edge, that it's quite possibly that a lot of people have really been desensitized. I mean, there's always going to be those people that are so disconnected from reality that they don't care. You know, the people that, you know, they're just all about their Hollywood stuff and their pop culture and their coffees and their video games and that kind of stuff. I mean, the world could be ending in front of their eyes and they probably wouldn't flinch, as long as they had those things. I'm talking about the bulk of Americans, the ones that kind of fall in the middle. They're not like us, and they're not like the people I just mentioned. They're aware enough to know that there's some bad things going on. They just feel in their heart that America's too big, too strong to fail, and that we're gonna come out on the other side, you know, smelling like a rose.
And that's just the mindset of your average American in general. And I've known people in my life that are on both ends of this spectrum that the prepared homesteader said. Those that are just completely obsessed with pop culture and Instagram and TikTok and Hollywood and all that bullshit, and those that are on the other side. You may say they're more conservative leaning people, and they have somewhat of an understanding of what's going on and how things are not as good as they could be out there, but they still believe that voting matters. They still believe that the US dollar will remain the Federal Reserve currency, will remain the world reserve currency forever. That Trump's going to get back into office, so to speak, and that, you know what, America's just too big to fail. We're the greatest nation on the face of the earth. Hey, make America great again, build back better, whatever. But I'm sure all these past kingdoms thought the same thing before they went into the dustbin of history, and it's going to be no different with the United States of America. But again, the majority of Americans out here are in that lackadaisical mindset, thinking that America's going to go on forever, and that these may just be a few road bumps, but you know what? We'll endure. These are the colors that never run. This is Isaiah chapter 47. I'm start at verse 1 and jump around. Lament for Babylon. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. That daughter of Babylon, the United States of America, sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Jump down to verse 7. And thou saidst, I shall be a lady forever. America's never going to collapse. This is the number one country on the face of the earth. I can never see anything taking us out of power, out of that superpower position. So that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it. What happened to the Medo-Persian Empire, the Neo-Babylonian Empire, the Assyrian Empire, the Roman Empire? Just another footnote in a history book somewhere. Therefore, hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, more concerned with doing videos for TikTok, taking 20 Instagram pictures, worrying about what this actor's doing, Hollywood gossip, the next movie coming out, the next concert to go to, when the midterm elections are, who we're going to vote into office to save the country, just frivolous bullshit. Oh, Halloween coming up, Thanksgiving, Christmas, that sayest in thine heart, I am and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day. And when you go to Revelation chapter 18, which further talks about the destruction of Babylon the Great, the United States of America, it says it's going to be destroyed in 1 hour. And here, 1 hour in 1 day. By what? Those 200 million nuclear missiles from the North Country and those kings raised up from the ends of the earth that are cruel, that hold the bow and the lance. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in 1 day, the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. But the main point I wanted to hearken in on is where it says, thou art given to pleasures that dwellest carelessly. The majority of Americans out here being in that lackadaisical mindset, thinking, oh, America's going to go on forever, and this is just another road bump until we get back to our former greatness, the good old days, so to speak. Well, according to the scriptures, hey, there's nothing good coming to the United States of America. Only lamentations, mournings, and woe, the loss of children, sitting in widowhood.
What happens if that doesn't happen? How are they going to react? And I've said many times that those people could be the ones that cause the panic. You know, they could lose it. They could, just go into a tailspin because all their worst fears are finally realized. But what if that doesn't happen? What if they've become so desensitized to everything that's happened around us for the last couple of years that if something like that happens, they're just like, oh well, just another thing on our bingo card, at least it's not here. And I got to thinking, both scenarios I think are very dangerous. Obviously, if everyone loses it and panics, there's the obvious danger there, right? I don't think I have to explain that. But the other, if nobody panics, or at least not a lot, there's not a lot of panic. People are just like, oh, that stinks. We should go kick Russia's butt. Oh, man, I hope it doesn't affect my 401k that much. What it would tell me, at least if I was a global elite world leader, I would say, well, we've done our job. We've desensitized them enough. Everyone is bought in and have so much faith in us that even a nuke being used isn't enough to cause them to panic. And so I think we should push forward our global agenda, our agenda to take over the world. Because if they're not going to react to a nuke being dropped, then, what will they react to? So I think either scenario is very dangerous. And we should prepare accordingly, And if the nuke is dropped and nothing happens, don't say, oh, well, it's okay. It's nothing. You know, if a nuke was used and America once again moves the goalposts and says, well, that wasn't a very big nuke, and we're only going to react if you use a big one, even though we said we would react if you used any of them, even though we said we'd react if you did all these other 10 things, it's going to weaken us even more. And even though there's a chance that we wouldn't get involved because of that in a war, a full kinetic war, we're already involved in the war. What it would do is it would show the world that we're even weaker. We're already seeing that, you know, with yesterday, OPEC against, you know, America's wishes, said, you know what, we're cutting 2 million barrels a day in production. We're gonna stick it to you. Cause prices to skyrocket again, and they've already gone up quite a bit since then. So the prediction a month ago or so that the lowering oil prices are just for a time and that they're going to go up this fall and winter seemed to be pretty true, because November oil was already trading at around $100 a barrel yesterday. So the days of that really cheap, you know, oil, $3 a gallon or whatever you're paying, a little under $3 a gallon, that's over, folks. And what it will do, I'm going around the barn, you know, that's what I do, going around the barn to get to the door. If we do nothing, there would be more and more countries say, you know what, America's done. If they can't even react to a nuclear weapon being used on an ally that they say that they're standing by and that they're going to defend, then they can't do anything. And we're going to see, very potentially see, less and less countries use our currency, trade in our currency. We're going to see less and less countries, you know, fall in line with, you know, any type of sanctions and stuff that we have done against Russia or China. And we're going to see ourselves become a very weak nation that the rest of the world has very little respect for.
And whether that scenario plays out like that or not is irrelevant, which, hey, Abaratazah, Putin does drop a low-yield tactical nuke in Ukraine. Like I said in a previous video, there's nothing wrong with Edomite on Edomite violence. Regardless of that scenario, hey, these nations are already looking down on the United States of America as a weak nation that's living in the twilight hours of its rulership. This is the book of Obadiah. I'm going to start at verse 1, and the header reads, Edom will be humbled. The vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord Yahweh concerning Edom, you so-called white people. We have heard a rumor from Yahweh, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. On the one hand, these Edomites globally are the minority race. And on the other hand, this is talking about the prestige, the image of the Edomites being made small among these heathen nations. And we can see that with the United States of America. More and more nations are calling out the U.S. on its bullshit and looking for ways to circumvent the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency, and start to look to other nations as potential allies that they can do business with militarily and economically, as the homestead preparedness, as the preparedness homesteader said. Look at what just happened recently with OPEC. They agreed to take a lot of, I believe, 2 million barrels of oil out of the rotation, all to the dismay of the United States of America. You even had President Joe Biden try to talk to the Saudi Crown Prince to be like, look, what are you doing? You can't just take that many barrels of oil out of production. That's going to put us in a very bad spot. But he didn't give a shit. He did it, and we're going to see what the fallout from that is. And OPEC is now known as OPEC Plus, that plus involving Russia, the main adversary of the United States of America, which, as we read in Jeremiah chapter 50, is going to be the main nation that's going to lead this charge in shooting nuclear missiles onto the United States. And as I brought up in previous videos, you had the former Venezuelan president, Hugo Chavez, say at one of those UN meetings once that if you want to know what the root cause of all the problems on the earth are, just look at a person with blonde hair and blue eyes wearing a business suit, referring to these Edomites, specifically these American Edomites who have always been trying to meddle in his country's affairs. Then a lot of these nations just constantly see how dirty you do your allies and how often you break treaties. Back during the Iran-Iraq war, during the 1980s, the US was actually on the side of Iraq to fight against Iran. You can find images of Donald Rumsfeld with Saddam Hussein all buddied up with him. But then when Saddam Hussein wanted to take his country off the reliance of the dollar and move more towards the euro and bring up some kind of gold-backed currency, what did you see? Operation Desert Storm in the early 90s, and then his regime getting finished off in 2002 to 2003 with the war in Iraq, Operation Iraqi Freedom. And then look at what happened with Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. He was wanting to take a lot of North African countries and just African countries in general off of the reliance of the US dollar, by the petrodollar, by coming up with a gold-backed dinar. And of course, the Western powers, chiefly the US, didn't like that. So they said, look, hey, let's make a deal with you. We'll take some sanctions off of you and stop afflicting your country if you give up your nuclear program. And once he did that, what did you see? A US NATO air campaign against his country, which led to the Libyan civil war, where the US used some of its proxy mercenary forces to help overthrow his government. And now his government's now Libya is in a much worse state than it was before. It's another balkanized, ruined third world country. And a lot of these other nations saw that, and they're thinking to themselves, hey, we're doing deals with the US today, but if we get out of line, hey, who's to say our head won't be on the chopping block next?
So the point is that just about we're at a point now that I kind of almost feel that any scenario that happens could end up being bad. Next to everyone just coming together and having a kumbaya moment, I really don't see any scenario working out really, really in favor. I could be wrong, but that's my.
I said with this first clip, you get the point. Now I'm going to go to my second clip on the Full Spectrum Survivals YouTube channel titled, Russia, Get Ready for War on American Soil. They are buying all the guns. Just another example of biblical prophecy taking place right before our very eyes. As we'll see in this clip, the Most High truly is putting these Russian Edomites back in that old confrontational Soviet Union spirit. This is Ezekiel chapter 38. I'm going to start at verse 1. And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, another biblical name for Russia, besides the north country, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back, and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth. And the Most High putting those hooks into the jaws of these Russian Edomites is him putting them back in that confrontational Soviet Union spirit, which we can clearly see when the US and Israel, these other NATO nations, tried to overthrow Bashar al-Assad's government during the Syrian civil war. Who came in on his side? Russia. You've got Russia building up their military assets, nuclear capable, up in that Arctic Ocean region, which I talked about earlier. They're doing more economic and military ties with a bunch of different countries across the planet to build back their former prestige in the world. And then you've got this military conflict going on in Ukraine, and Russia saying a lot of shit towards the West, specifically the United States of America, saying, hey, we're not afraid to use our nuclear weapons on you. And as we'll see in that clip on Full Spectrum Survival, hey, they're talking even more big shit. Hey, getting more into that old Soviet Union spirit. The Most High is rousing up that Russian bear. And all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company, with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, their military hardware and assets, soldiers, tanks, fighter jets, helicopters, artillery pieces, the S-300, S-400, S-500, which we can see, hey, the Most High is bringing forth their forces more and more into Ukraine. Putin just came out with that new order to bring up 300,000 reservists to go fight in Ukraine. But what this is ultimately talking about is Russia's military forces being gathered down into that Middle Eastern region for the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon, the real part of World War III that you can further read about in Joel chapter 3. But let's get back to that clip. And again, this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this video, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes.
I got a call from a friend last night who runs a gun shop, and he said firearms are flying off of the shelves and people are buying more ammunition than he has ever seen them purchase before. When he asked people what they're buying for, they said because they believe that we are going into a war, and it would be smart for them to get the ammunition and the firearms that they need now before they are just given weapons by the government to fight a war or against opposition. Now, my question to you is, do you believe that we are going to be affected militarily on the United States in American soil? If you don't,
This is 2 Esdras chapter 15, verse 15. For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. And when we use this precept, we go into how that one people standing up and fighting against another can go into racial skirmishes taking place in the U.S., which is going to take place, one race of people against another, and a civil war in the United States, one class of people against another, one political affiliation against another. But this can also go into a one group of citizens of a country against another group of citizens in a country. Citizens in the United States of America with all these guns they bought up fighting against foreign troops, another group of people on American soil, such as the Russians, the Chinese, UN forces, mercenaries, you name it. And hey, they're already on the soil of the US. I remember about 8 to 10 years ago, I was watching a video from this YouTube channel called The Common Sense Show by Dave Hodges, and he has a lot of ties to former military people. And he had one guy on his show saying that in Colorado, which has a heavy U.S. military presence there in general, that he was getting reports and seeing himself that there were Russian troops already in Colorado. Somebody saw that these Russian troops were shooting at an old overpass, maybe for target practice with AK-47s, and that either this guy or somebody he knew went into a subway, and there were a bunch of just military-looking guys in there ordering subs, and they were speaking in perfect English, like you just imagine they were average everyday American. But then after they took their order and were walking away, they started talking in fluent Russian. Hey, sleeper cells are here, other people are here, just waiting to get the order. And then on the other hand, with the Chinese, the elder Malcolm of the Chicago camp said he was talking to a brother who got a random phone call from a bunch of Chinese. They said they were Chinese soldiers. And how would they know this brother unless they watch our videos and just keep files on us. But this brother said he got a call from some people saying they were Chinese soldiers, saying they can't wait to kill niggers on the streets of America. So, hey, again, one people standing up and fighting against another with swords in their hands. And the modern day sword, especially in the United States of America, is the gun.
I want you to listen to exactly what the Russian State Duma said. Russian State Duma deputy, Washington's continuation of its measures against Russia will push Moscow to transfer operations to American soil. The Russian State Duma says that Russia will have to resort to other operations and other options that are not on Ukrainian soil. The Kremlin says that the United States of America is working to manipulate with its oil reserves. This game won't yield a good outcome for America. The Kremlin continues that the United States has begun to lose its cool as a result of the OPEC Plus decision to reduce oil production. The Russian State Duma deputy continued that repeating the Soviet missile scenario crisis in 1962 is a possible military response to the American measures against Russia. So what does that mean? Nuclear weapons right against America's borders, or possibly within. The Russian State Duma deputy continued that the bombing of the Crimean Bridge took place at the hands of Ukraine, but the American side is the one who plans these terroristic actions. Germany is warning that the entire country and its military must begin to prepare for increasing attacks on infrastructure. The commander of the Territorial Command tells the public and the military that they must begin to get ready. In fact, I'm seeing reports in the United States of America by American service people and local police departments suggesting that they are starting to beef up their security protocols at infrastructural plants in the USA as they prepare for sabotage to take place. The French.
Matthew chapter 24, verse 6. This is Yahushua HaMashiach, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus Christ, telling his disciples of the end time signs to look for, to know that his second coming is nigh, and that the end of this age of the rulership of the heathen nations is at hand, and that the kingdom of heaven is about to be established. And while he told his disciples in the past of these things, as it says in Romans chapter 15, everything written aforetime was written for our learning, he was really speaking to his disciples today who are living in these times. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Hey, the use of low-yield tactical nukes in Ukraine, Germany beefing up security on critical infrastructure, U.S. military personnel doing the same. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. We truly are seeing these wars and rumors of wars. We can't forget China versus Taiwan, Israel versus Iran, and World War III, which will go nuclear. All these things are going to take place. But as it says at the end, but the end is not yet. While we're going to see things take place here and there, the end won't truly come. Those nuclear missiles won't truly start flying until the Charagma, the Markofthebeast in Revelation chapter 13 verses 16 to 18, which is the RFID/NFC MICROCHIPIMPLANT is mandatorily implemented. And we can see that with each passing day, we're getting closer and closer to that rollout and eventual mandatory implementation of the Charagma. You've got all these different governments and central banks talking about issuing CBDCs or central bank digital currencies. And they're literally talking about the Charagma in the mainstream news now. There was that clip of that guy on, I believe, CNN or one of those legacy news media channels showing how he got a Charagma in his hand and it allowed him to unlock his Tesla, unlock his door, and he'd also like to add payment options to it. like it says, that they may neither buy nor sell. We truly are living in some beautiful times, Akim. We can see the finish line. Hey, our salvation is nearer than when we believed. And again, we just need to hold strong to this faith and not lose our crown, especially so close to the end. But let's further see how the Most High is putting the hooks into the jaws of Gog and bringing Russia back into that Soviet Union spirit.
Energy Ministry said that at 3 p.m. on Sunday, 30%.
Have you heard? But it could completely upend American life. You see, Section 4 of this order is set to completely overhaul our entire financial system, replacing our cash currency with a new programmable digital token. This would all of your purchases, donations.
Hey, that's the spirit. When I was watching this video earlier to get ready to do this Shabbat lesson, this ad didn't play, but this is the ad talking about Executive Order 14067, the U.S. government implementing a CBDC, a central bank digital currency, because again, we're moving towards a cashless digital society, which is all going to be predicated upon having that charagma in you.
Income and more could be tracked. Your accounts could be turned on or off outside of your control. In fact, I believe soon your physical dollars will be confiscated or will simply be worthless paper. This is without a doubt the most alarming development I've seen in my entire career, and I've seen a lot. My name is Jim Rickards. I've been an advisor to the Pentagon, the White House, Congress, the CIA, and the Department of Defense. I'm also an attorney, investment banker, and author of 7 books on currencies and international economics. When places like Fox, CNBC, or Bloomberg want to know what's about to shake up the global economy, they call me. Most of all, like you, I'm a proud American patriot. This disturbing prediction is based on my independent research and my contacts in the intelligence community. The good news is there are ways you can protect yourself and your savings from falling under the control of Washington elites. But you'll have to act fast because once fully implemented, it could be too late. And U.S. trials are already well underway. I believe we could start seeing these digital dollars in circulation soon. That's why I put together a presentation on the actions I think every American should take before that happens. It's free to watch, but I can't promise how much longer it will be available, so please click the button below to view it now.
Percent of all petrol and service stations in France, the entire country, were experiencing supply difficulties with at least one, many multiple fuel products compared to just 20% a day earlier. According to the reports that we are seeing and the videos and footage that we are seeing come out of France, the fuel crisis is causing massive lines at petrol stations or gas stations in and around localized areas. 3 out of 6 refineries are currently shut down due to different things that are taking place in this energy crisis. Many have cut production, the equivalent to almost a million barrels per day. Back to Russia, Putin has called a meeting on the Russian Security Council tomorrow. Well, it's going to be a different time than our tomorrow, but at our time tomorrow, when I update this video, you'll start to see what has happened. The Kremlin says that the Russian leader is ready to increase pressure on NATO and America. Ukrainian intelligence says that Russia is, at this moment in time, taking measures to force the country of Belarus to an open war, to enter into open conflict with Ukraine, with NATO, with Poland, with America. The Belarusian government has officially accused Ukraine of preparing a strike on its sovereign territory and national integrity. The corresponding note was handed over by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Belarus yesterday to the Ukrainian ambassador, saying that Belarus now considers Ukraine an enemy in this conflict. The Russian Foreign Ministry says that Ukraine has disrupted negotiations between Moscow and the order of Western countries. In short, because it wasn't just a 72-hour special operation that allowed Russia to take over Ukraine, because the United States of America and NATO bolstered Ukrainian defensive and offensive capabilities, Russia is saying that now this is causing a conflict between those countries. Here at this channel, we regularly monitor Air Force activity around Russia, and we are seeing the details that a Russian Air Force Tupolev Tu-T14R RF-64514 Special Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance Platform departed from Kazan. Now, what this plane is going to be doing, we're going to likely see the fallout from it in the next couple of days. Russia has appointed a notorious general who opened fire on pro-democracy protests in the 1990s as its overall commander in.
Guys, I know you think all those puzzle ads are fake, but today I finally found the game. Evan.
In this war against Ukraine.
And the nickname for this Chechen general that Vladimir Putin just put into place is General Armageddon. So you know he doesn't play any games.
NATO and America. This is as Russia works to halt the counteroffensive that left its forces retreating from multiple locations. For over 30 years, Surovikin's career has been dogged with allegations of corruption and brutality. That's according to British intelligence officials in a recent report that he is likely to lead the Southern military group. During the 1991 coup attempt launched by Soviet hardliners, Surovikin, then a captain, led a rifle division, according to these reports, that drove through barricades erected by pro-democracy protesters. Multiple people lost their lives that day, including crushed individuals. It is highly symbolic that Sergei Surovikin, the only officer who ordered to shoot on the revolutionaries, is now in charge of an effort to restore the Soviet Union, writes Gregory Yudin, a Russian political scientist and sociologist. The charge of an effort to restore the Soviet Union, writes Gregory charge of an effort to restore the Soviet Union.
And I shall put hooks into thy jaws and turn thee back, bring thee forth.
Writes Gregory Yudin, a Russian political scientist and sociologist. These people knew what they were doing, and they know now. Among Russians, they say, are welcoming the appointment of Surovikin, the notorious founder of the Wagner private military company and a vocal critic of what is happening in the world today. Surovikin, he says, is the most able commander in the Russian army, according to a statement put out by the company. He is a legendary figure. He was born to serve his motherland faithfully. Having received an order, Surovikin was the officer who without hesitation got in his tank and went forward to save his country. Now, what does this mean for the battlefield today? A lot of things are going to change in the next couple of days. A senior Ukrainian official speaking on a condition of anonymity said that Ukraine's intelligence services are the ones who orchestrated the attack that involved a explosive device being loaded onto a truck driving across that Crimean bridge, showering it with what looked like white phosphorus or white metal that brought the bridge down. Duma is urging the declaration of war on Ukraine openly, open war, after the explosion of that bridge, and Russia has declared a maximum state of emergency in Crimea. Video that we're seeing in Iran shows police.
So with this clip, but hey, we can clearly see that biblical prophecy is taking place right before our very eyes. This is Revelation chapter 9, verse 12. One woe is past, one destruction is past, referring to World War I. And behold, there come two woes more hereafter. World War II, which is past, and World War III, which is quickly coming, and will go nuclear. And we can see all the different players, Russia, United States of America, these NATO nations, China, etc., are all getting moved into place to go to war in this conflict, which, like I said earlier, the main part of World War III is going to be in that Middle Eastern region, the Valley of Jehoshaphat, which you can read about in Joel chapter 3. Now I'm going to close it out in Isaiah chapter 34, verse 16. Seek ye out of the book of Yahweh. And what is the book of Yahweh? The scriptures, what people know as the Old Testament and the New Testament, as well as the Apocrypha, which is a part of the Old Testament, and read. No one of these shall fail. None of these prophecies stated to take place in the scriptures will fail. Every single one is going to come to its fulfillment. None shall want her mate. There is no other book that can be compared to the scriptures. For my mouth it hath commanded, and his spirit it hath gathered them. So that's it with this Shabbat lesson. And with this Shabbat lesson, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.